Hello and welcome to Friday Live. I am Amanda Farmer and we are going out live to the Your Strata Property Facebook page, also out to LinkedIn and out to YouTube. How are you all doing this Friday? It is a Friday Live. The plan is to be here for the next hour or so, catching up on our week in Strata. This is your wrap up. And I have made it safely to Orange. I just arrived about 10 minutes ago and I've rushed into the Orange Ex-Services Club to sit down and have this live chat with you. I'll give you a little tour, a little spin here to just let you know what my surrounds are right now. There we go. That is the Orange Ex-Services Club. Let me know if you know it. Let me know if you have been to this venue before. I just want to point out that it's 5 o'clock on a Friday, so things may get a little bit rowdy. I have sat myself in the corner here so we can have maybe some quiet. We'll see how we go. I know there's some gents over there at one of the tall tables that have been watching me set up here thinking, what is she doing? What is going on over there? Very exciting times. Friday Live. But yes, I have made it. A couple of hours drive from my home, Orange is. Dad, I'm here. I know Dad likes to know when I have arrived, when I've been on the road. So haven't had time to text you, but I'm here. My dad often tunes in to Friday Live. Here for the Australian Institute of Conveyancers Conference. The New South Wales division is having a little getaway here this weekend, and they have asked me to give a session, an education session on Strata. So that's something I've done for the last few years for the Australian Institute of Conveyancers. Very happy to do so because it is just so important. I think that those professionals who are advising on Strata, advising our Strata purchasers at the point of sale, so important that they understand and are as accurately informed as they can be. So happy to do my bit there. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that point of sale in today's chat. If you are coming on in, and there's lots of you here for our Friday Live, give me a hello here in the comments. I can see your comments coming through on Facebook, on LinkedIn. I think I can see YouTube comments as well, which is awesome. Denise is saying hi from Japan. So cool. Thanks for tuning in from Japan, Denise. What time is it there in Japan? A little different probably from the Orange Ex-Services Club. I'm getting a welcome to O-Town. That's coming in under the Your Strata Property handle. I think that is Michelle Saunders who is welcoming me. We're going to be catching up here tomorrow. Peter is saying going to get noisy soon. Yeah, maybe. I've also got a blaring sports TV here next to me as well, so I'm not sure if that's coming through my mic, but you know, that's just how we roll on a Friday afternoon. You never know where I'm going to end up, what it's going to be like. I was at a festival last Friday, so you know, it's all fun. Anne-Marie is here saying he probably doesn't know you're the Amanda Farmer. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Bit of an in-joke there, the Amanda Farmer. So good to see you here, Anne-Marie, coming to us from LinkedIn. Peter Dixon is here saying, hi, Amanda from, I'm going to butcher this. I'm sorry, Peter. Hi, Amanda from Darramurrugal. I'm going to look it up. I'm going to learn that. Lands in Northern Sydney. Great to know. Thank you, Peter. And I apologise for my poor pronunciation there. Bruce is telling me that Japan is 1 hour behind, only 1 hour behind. Okay, good to know. So Denise is tuning in at our usual 4 p.m. time. It is later than usual today because I have been on the road. Richard Dapache is saying hi from London. I love these jet setters. What are you up to in London there, Richard? Have you been there for a while? Good to know and great to have you here with us. Cheryl is here with 3 bunches of flowers for me today. Thank you, Cheryl. I think you keep upping those every week. Good to see you here. Yes, Denise is saying 4 p.m. in Japan. Jacqueline is saying hi from Jackie and John. Kushla is saying lovely city Orange is. Yeah, I have spent a little bit of time in Orange. It's not too far from my backyard. So I'm happy to be here once again. Chilly. Having said that, it's really warm here in the club. So I just have the heat up really high. So I've got a few layers on, and I'm sorry, but we're not quite at the stage where I'm going to strip it off for you. So I'm just going to maybe go a little bit pinker than usual. I'll do my best. I've got my water here as well. Shana saying hi from Coffs Harbour. There's so many of you here today. This is a good time slot, hey? Same day as Orange in Japan. Not sure I've got that, Bruce. Let me think on that one. Okay, and John is saying hi from Ho Chi Minh. Wow, we are all coming in from everywhere today. Henry's saying hi, Amanda. Enjoy the conveyancing conference. Go easy on the shandies. Yeah, is that because I'm in the ex-services club? Is that a thing? I'm not sure. Good to know. Thank you, Henry. Now, the other thing that I want to alert you to is the fact that I am on a laptop without power because I haven't found the PowerPoint. Yeah, there might be one here, but I was in quite a rush to set up here. So we'll go for as long as my laptop allows me to. Having just said my laptop, confession to make, this is not my laptop. When I was on the plane coming back from Adelaide last weekend, I had my laptop in its case, all nicely packed up in my backpack with other things that you may need on a plane, including a water bottle. This water bottle here. And for whatever reason, I say not me, wasn't my fault. The lid opened on the water bottle and proceeded to drench my laptop bag and my laptop. So my laptop is just over there. The laptop that I'm on now, in the hopes that this will be more reliable than mine, which has been a little bit difficult the last week, having been wet. This laptop is my husband's. So as I was packing up, or he was packing up for work this morning, I said, sweetie, do you mind if I take your laptop with me to Orange? And the love in his eyes when I said that, it was with joy and graciousness that he said, absolutely, of course, you can take my laptop for the weekend. So yes, there may be a new laptop / iPad / something. There's so many options out there today. I'm not really sure what I should get. Maybe you can give me some tips. Maybe on the cards for me, so I don't have to run off with my husband's laptop, which he does need to use. So we'll see how we go. But yes, lots to catch up on this week while we have time. And I'm so glad that you're all here. I can see Layla coming in. Michelle is now here under her usual handle. I posted on the page yesterday, I think it was, a little celebratory video featuring my dog, one of my dogs, Louis, and myself, congratulating one of my clients who has had some success in the tribunal when it comes to the keeping of a pet in her Strata building. So I do have permission to say congratulations to Bronwyn, Greg, and their dog, Bowie. I first met with Bronwyn and Greg a few months ago now. I think it might have been earlier this year when Bronwyn was planning to move into what was previously her investment property, and she was hoping to take her dog Bowie with her. And Bowie is an elderly dog, I think. Well, I say elderly, I think he's about 10 years old, a large dog. So as I understand it, larger dogs in those elder years when they're about 10 years old, very highly trained, beautiful dog. And her building happened to have a pet ban. So as I know, a number of you have consulted with me about pet bans since the change to our New South Wales law. Bronwyn came and had a chat with me about what the law was, the current law in New South Wales, and how I thought her building's pet ban might stand up against that. Unfortunately, as it turned out, even though we had some communications with her owners corporation, they insisted on enforcing that pet ban, and Bronwyn and Greg ended up before the tribunal having to argue that pet ban was invalid. And Bronwyn's just reported to me, I didn't appear in the tribunal, I wasn't involved in that side of the proceedings, but Bronwyn reported to me yesterday that she had been successful in the tribunal. And as it turned out, the owners corporation, once before the member, and having heard from the tribunal member that they really had nowhere to go with their pet ban, and it was very likely that it was going to be overturned, the owners corporation sensibly, I think, capitulated and agreed to a set of consent orders whereby Bowie could stay at the property. So I posted on the page some congratulations there. I didn't refer to Bronwyn and Greg by name at that time, but I am able to do that now. Congratulations to you, and it's a happy time. Lots of comments under that video. I haven't had a chance to go through all of them just yet. When I was creating that video, and I do create those videos, it's what's called a reel in Instagram. If you're not sure, over on our Instagram page at Your Strata Property, you can create these cool videos which have some words that pop up, and you can add some music to it as well. So if you've been seeing those on the page, I've been creating those over on Instagram. And when I was developing the wording that I wanted to post with that video, I did think hard about that wording, because part of that wording was that pet bans are almost always illegal. That's what I posted with the video. Pet bans are almost always illegal. Maybe a little bit loyally of me to put that almost always in there, but that really is the case in New South Wales. When our new legislation started last year, our new section inserted into our Strata Schemes Management Act about the keeping of animals, it was a surprise. It was almost a surprise to me, and I was hoping for some quite pro-pet legislation. But the lawyers, when we looked at it, we were quite surprised that the position really did seem to make it very, very hard. The legislation seemed to make it very, very hard for owners corporations to outright ban, to prevent the keeping of animals in residential New South Wales strata schemes. And it's depending on how you want to interpret the legislation, it's almost a position of animals are permitted until there are a set of circumstances that they may meet where they are causing an unreasonable interference. And until that happens, then it's not open to the owners corporation to ban pets. So I've looked at that legislation quite closely for a few clients and had some barristers' advice on that legislation. So when I see some comments on the page about bans that are still in place and terms of bylaws that may ban dogs but not ban cats, from my point of view, I think those bans are still very difficult and, if challenged, are very likely to be set aside. However, I did say almost always illegal, not always illegal. So we do need to look at the specific circumstances of the community. Where you have commercial properties, of course, that may be different. Where you have holiday lets, we've had a case come out of Western Australia, if I remember correctly, where a ban on pets in a community that was for holiday letting or short-term letting, that was upheld for, I believe, that reason. It was holiday lets and short-term residents. Where you may have a community that is in an area with native fauna and flora, where you may have a council development consent condition that says there must be a bylaw in place banning the keeping of animals, that's where we start to get a little bit more complex, and we do need to look a little bit more closely at those communities. I'm just seeing some comments come in from Bill and Ben. I'll just skip to, I think, the one that's relevant to pets here, Bill and Ben. My SC is dealing with motions to send 3 notices to comply for the fact of the animal dogs. Hard to believe. Yeah, I know, Bill and Ben, you've I think got a pet ban in your community. I think you've written about that previously and tried to have that set aside, perhaps. Bill and Ben's also asking me if this is the naughty corner. Yeah, so anybody who's coming in, I am sitting in the Orange X Services Club on a Friday afternoon. Things are getting a little rowdy. I've just put myself over here, yes, in the corner where I may be able to get some peace and quiet, and we'll see how we go with that. Okay, and I wanted to address Henry's question when posting under our Louis video yesterday. Henry asked me, how is Louis going, enjoying country life, and how's he going with the Kelpies there? And I said I had a funny story about that, or a few funny stories. Yes, we moved to the country with Louis just over a year ago. Since then, we've also brought Barnaby, our second dog, into the family. You didn't see Barnaby in the video because he's a terror, and he was next to me eating the grass out of the lawn. So he's part cow, part dog. And if I didn't put the music over the video, you would have heard him munching away. But yes, moving to the country with Louis, who is very much a city dog. Louis was raised in an apartment. The first 2.5 years of his life in an apartment. He loves his lounge. He loves his apartment comforts. So bringing Louis to the country was a real challenge, and taking him to the dog park where he does meet the country dogs, the Kelpies in particular. They like to round him up because they think he's a sheep, because he is an oodly style dog and he is quite fluffy and furry. And we kind of stopped going to the dog park because it's a little bit confronting for poor Louis, who gets rounded up by the Kelpies and those very different country dogs. So Louis is enjoying country life as long as he's got his lounge and his indoor activities. Now, I am here in Orange because I am delivering an education session tomorrow for our New South Wales conveyancers, and an education session, of course, all about strata and the need to know what I think are the need to know items for those who are advising on strata purchases. And a few weeks ago, you might remember that I posted, I think it was here, yes, I did post here on the page, what do you wish you had known when you bought into strata? And I did that with this event in mind coming up, that I wanted to deliver for our conveyancers some really valuable education that was helping them to understand that after the fact, there's a lot of picking up of the pieces that owners have to do, that strata managers have to do, that strata lawyers have to do, because purchasers don't understand or haven't quite received the message of what it is to be living in strata. So many of you posted under that comment. A lot of you were saying education at that point of purchase is essential. Some strata managers saying, I really wish that owners better understood what unit entitlement means, what levies are. I recently had a strata manager who said to me, Amanda, I attended a meeting in a 4-lot scheme, and the owners said to me, we're not going to have levies. We're not going to have a capital works fund. We don't think we need it. So we'll just cancel that. Is that okay, strata manager? We won't do that anymore. So clearly there's a real lack of understanding out there about what strata living is and the collective nature of strata living. So I wanted to share with you some of the topics that I plan to cover, or at least one in particular that I plan to cover with our conveyancers tomorrow. And as well as surveying you here on the page, I also surveyed a few conveyancers that I know do strata work, and I asked them, what is your single biggest challenge when it comes to advising on the purchase of strata title properties? What are the things that just come up again and again? And of every conveyancer that I spoke to, what came up again and again was 2-lot strata schemes. 2-lot strata schemes. Purchasers into these schemes are finding it difficult to wrap their heads around the fact that they do have obligations, that they do have legal compliance issues to deal with when buying into a 2-lot strata, perhaps even to wrap their heads around the fact that this is a strata plan. And those of us who have been involved in working with maybe some dysfunctional communities, maybe some difficult communities with a fair amount of conflict, will often say that it is the smaller communities that have the biggest problems. And when you're dealing with 2-lot schemes, those problems can very quickly become intractable and need the intervention of the tribunal. So I'm going to be speaking about that tomorrow and giving some guidance to our conveyancers about 2-lot schemes. In particular, I want to share how important the concept of unit entitlement is in our smaller strata buildings. So unit entitlement is important to understand at the best of times. It's what regulates your levy contribution, your voting rights. It's essentially a number that represents the relative value of your lot. But when you're in a 2-lot scheme, it may be that unit entitlements between the 2 lots are equal. So one owner may have a 50% share of the unit entitlement and the other a 50% share. What does that mean? Well, it means that decisions can't actually be made unless both owners are in agreement, because you can't get a majority decision without both owners agreeing. And that's where we see the deadlocks happen, the breakdown in decision making, where, for example, one owner might say that we need repairs and maintenance to parts of the common property, and the other owner disagrees. And that decision can't be made. They can't move forward with that unless they can get agreement. Even more concerning, disturbing, perhaps difficult, is where unit entitlements are unequal. So at the moment, I'm working with a couple of clients in small buildings, one of them a 2-lot scheme, where unit entitlements are unequal. In one, the share is 60% to one owner and 40% to the other. And the smaller shareholding owner, unit entitlement owner, requires some pretty extensive, pretty expensive repairs and maintenance to be done to the common property that is only affecting her lot. So the water penetration that's happening at the lot is only affecting her. And because this is so expensive, the other owner is resisting, and we're having to go to the tribunal to get an order, to get some intervention there so that this work can be done, because without that other owner's agreement, it is not going to proceed. And I'm not sure that this owner with the smaller holding was told at the time that she bought in that this was her unit entitlement, and indeed what that meant if there was a dispute down the track, that it was going to be quite difficult to resolve. So unit entitlements are an incredibly important subject, especially when we are dealing with smaller buildings. The other topic that apparently comes up a lot when conveyancers are advising strata purchasers at the point of sale in smaller buildings, 2-lot schemes, insurance. So we do have a mandatory requirement for building insurance that's in our legislation. It's section 160 of our Strata Schemes Management Act. An owner's corporation must insure the building. That also applies to 2-lot schemes with an exemption, with an exemption in certain circumstances. So 2-lot schemes do need to have building insurance in the name of the owner's corporation, unless the owners have unanimously agreed not to do it. And this is an and, the 2 lots are physically separate from each other, so there's no building that's shared, and there are no other buildings on the common property that are within the management of the owner's corporation. So wouldn't be too many, I think, 2-lot schemes that are in that position. We imagine duplexes, we imagine villas where they are actually attached, so they do have shared building, and then absolutely building insurance in the name of the owner's corporation is needed. And what I get told by conveyancers is that it doesn't exist. There may be an insurance policy, but the owner of the individual lot holds that insurance policy and says, hey, yep, building is insured, here it is in my name. But that's not going to cover problems with the common property if they do arise. You need a proper strata building insurance policy in the name of the owner's corporation. Now, I'm going to head over to these comments. I will keep going with some points about 2-lot schemes. But some of you are letting me know, Peter is saying, this is my first Friday Live. What's the protocol? Can I put you on the spot with a question? You can try, Peter. You can try. You are welcome to post questions in here. And if we have some time, aside from the agenda that I've set for today, I'm happy to jump into some questions. And anything I don't get to, we can also carry over to another week or slot it into an Ask Amanda Now segment. I say you can try, and I don't get put on the spot because I can see your questions. And if I don't like it, I'm not going to answer it. But please do put it in. I'm always interested to hear what is on your mind. So, yep, go ahead there, Peter. Tracking back, Jacqueline is saying, I'm pleased to see the outcome of the Pets in Strata being pro-pet. It's a reflection of animals as companions, management of which is supported in the Companion Animal Act, which essentially says all okay unless there's an issue. That is, wait till there's a problem with a pet, not the pet will be a problem. Yeah, I think that's a good articulation there, Jacqueline, of what our New South Wales legislation actually is. Richard has given me a note here that simply says question. Richard, if you want to post a question as I said to Peter, give it a go. If I get to it, I will jump in. Stephen is saying, hi Amanda, FYI, I'm a registered property valuer. From time to time, doing unit entitlement valuation certificates. Valuers have to comply with the Act regs as to assessing UE relative values. Absolutely, Stephen. And I think that's why we often see in our 2-lot schemes, and I'm also thinking of 3-lot and 4-lot, where they have unequal unit entitlements. There's a reason for that. One lot is more valuable. One lot may have a larger land size or maybe in a different position on the block. So it is proper that it has a larger unit entitlement and the other has a smaller. Absolutely. And it may be that hands are tied in that respect. But definitely making sure that purchasers, that people buying into these buildings understand the impact of that, especially if you're the smaller holder, I think is really, really vital. We see as lawyers, as strata managers, what happens when there's conflict and where there is disagreement. And I think when purchasers are buying in to what looks like a great building, a great property, two-lot schemes are often more seen in the way of houses, more like a freestanding property. So no one's kind of thinking about the collective ownership and the collective responsibilities. I think it's so important that be pointed out. Things are getting a little rowdy here, guys. I told you there's more people coming in. It's Friday. Bill and Ben is saying, see a disproportionate number of two-lot schemes put under ordered management by NCAT because of the inability of owners to agree. It's too easy to become dysfunctional if the owners can't agree. Yeah, I see that too, Bill and Ben, and I've certainly had a number of clients both seeking the appointment of a compulsory manager in a two-lot scheme and opposing that appointment. All right, the other important item to mention, and that I will be sharing with our conveyancers at the conference tomorrow, is capital works funding. Capital works funding generally is an important issue. We were talking about this last week, and I'm quite happy that my comments about the need for proper planning did end up published in the Sun Herald by Caitlin Fitzsimons, who was reporting on our elderly Earlwood couple who was surprised by a special levy. I think that was a key component of that story. Caitlin and I certainly talked about a lot of things, but I'm happy that it was that point that came across in that article. If you haven't checked it out, it is posted down here on the page. But capital works funding in two-lot schemes is a particularly important issue, I think, because it must be done, similar to insurance. The provision in our legislation says that an owner's corporation must establish a capital works fund. And the only out for a two-lot scheme is once again those same provisions where the owners have unanimously agreed, where there is no shared building, so the properties are completely detached from each other, and where there is no other building on the site, no other building that the owner's corporation is responsible for. That's the only time that you can get out of having a capital works fund. And I'm told by conveyancers that these buildings, that these two-lot schemes do not have capital works funds. I understand that completely. I see that myself with the buildings that I work with. If there is a capital works fund, as there should be, there also needs to be a 10-year capital works fund plan. So that's in our legislation, Section 80. We're supposed to have a 10-year plan. There is no requirement that that plan actually be followed, which I think is a problem. But certainly, no matter how small or big your owner's corporation is, your building is in New South Wales, you should have a capital works fund and a 10-year capital works fund plan. And conveyancers advising on the purchase of strata properties, make sure you're looking for that and telling your clients that this is needed. And if it's not there, then there may be a problem down the track that they should be aware of and should be prepared for if there is capital work that's needed and there hasn't been funds set aside for that. That's the situation that one of my clients is in at the moment, where the work is looking to be quite expensive, and between two owners, it's going to be a hefty financial contribution. Also in our two-lot schemes, the Strata Committee. I looked this up recently for a member. We were on a member call, which I offer to members inside our online community. And this member, his name is John, and he knew the legislation inside and out, which I loved, specific to two-lot schemes. And he was the one who pointed out to me that in a two-lot strata plan, both owners are automatically on the Strata Committee. So that provision is in our legislation. And if the owners are co-owners, so if there's if the property is in joint names, then one co-owner can nominate the other for the Strata Committee. Or if that doesn't happen, the name that is first on the strata roll is the one who is then on the Strata Committee. So another thing for people buying into two-lot schemes to understand, that you are automatically a member of the Strata Committee. Congratulations, you've got your new property and you've also got your committee member responsibilities straight away. So that's important to understand. Peter, I can see your question there, and I will I think, come back around to that one. Stephen's saying, I agree, it's a problematic area. Yep, Stephen's our valuer who was saying that, yep, sometimes unit entitlements are just unequal and that's how the property is valued, but it does indeed lead to some problems. Henry's here saying, thank you for the story. Poor Louis, he needs a number one shave to make him look tough. Yeah, poor Lou doesn't really look tough with a number one shave. He just looks a bit skinny and cold in this part of the town. Jacqueline is saying 2-lot stratas make for power imbalance, but also responsibility, ethical management becomes a key. Yes, and Jacqueline, good timing, because next on my list to point out when it comes to 2-lot schemes is strata management. So we have plenty of 2-lot schemes that have strata managers, voluntary strata managers, let me say. We've also got plenty of 2-lot schemes that have compulsory strata managers because they are dysfunctional, unfortunately, but also plenty of self-managed 2-lot schemes. And I think that's why we see these issues with lack of compliance, lack of strict compliance with our legislation. No building insurance, even though that should be there, no capital works fund, even though that should be there, and perhaps disputes about repair and maintenance because that professional advisor is not there to be guiding the community. And I completely understand why owners in 2-lot schemes say, you know what, we don't really need a strata manager. It's not worth the cost to us. Absolutely, there are 2-lot schemes who can properly be managing their property without the intervention of a strata manager. But it probably goes without saying to this audience here that things are getting more complex. Almost every couple of months, something new is coming up in Strata that we have to be aware of. Our Strata Hub and our mandatory annual reporting is now well underway. And I know there is a view which Karen Stiles of the Owners Corporation Network very helpfully and properly, I think, put forward at the Strata Hub webinar that was on a couple of weeks ago. Karen said, strata committees should be able to meet their mandatory reporting obligations. They shouldn't need the intervention of a strata manager. They shouldn't need the strata manager to do it for them. It's about taking responsibility. It's about stepping into that role as committee member and jumping on the hub and putting those details in. Definitely, there will be communities out there who can do that. 2-lot schemes perhaps are well placed to do that. But then there are other communities, I think, that have a lot on their plate, have a lot going on. I know in my community, we all as a committee, all committee members have a lot on their plate, and there is no way that I would be able to add to that the mandatory annual reporting requirement. I'm very glad that we have a strata manager who is there able to do that for us. So horses for courses, I think, and remembering that you can, if you're frustrated by the annual reporting or you're waiting for your strata manager to be able to get access to the hub and to be able to do that for you, then the secretary of the committee can gather the information that you need for the hub and be able to upload that to the portal, definitely. I think Make, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name properly. I'm sure I'm not. I think this is about our 2-lot scheme, so I'm going to bring it up. I see more and more developers selling 2 or 3-lot strata title properties and leaving it to the purchasers to self-manage the properties. Do you have a course or book guides for those purchasers to purchase regarding responsibilities if they self-manage the strata properties? Yeah, interesting that you say they're being left to self-manage the properties. The owners can definitely decide to appoint a strata manager. So that just requires an ordinary resolution at a general meeting. So once again, if you've got 2 lots and they have equal unit entitlements, you're going to need both owners to be able to approve that before you can appoint a strata manager. If you have 3 lots, then 2 would need to appoint that strata manager. This club is really filling up. It's really filling up, and I'm getting a lot of people who are looking at me going, what is that woman doing over there? We'll just keep going until I get kicked out. Yes, so it's up to the owners. It's not up to the developer to appoint the strata manager, so you could do that. As for course book guides, I'm not sure, Meg, if you're in our ecosystem here at Your Strata Property, but definitely make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast that goes out each week to everybody on our mailing list and here on the Facebook page as well. And also hit the website for a few free ebooks that are there on the website, yourstrata.com. strataproperty.com.au. Any more questions about that, I'm happy to come around, Meg, and send you a direct message. Okay, Layla is asking, do the owners have to reaffirm their agreement each year if they opt out? Very good question, Layla. So that's about if they pass a unanimous resolution in a two-lot scheme. So I just want to be very clear. This is only relevant in a two-lot scheme. If you pass a unanimous resolution to opt out of building insurance or opt out of the capital works fund, you can do that if your buildings in your two-lot scheme are not attached and you've got no other buildings on the common property that the owners corporation should be looking after. My recollection, I haven't gone back to look at the section, but my recollection is that it simply says that the owners corporation must pass a unanimous resolution agreeing to opt out, to use your words, and no, that doesn't have to be done every year. I'll go back and have a close look at that. I might get asked that one tomorrow, so I better be on top of that one. Peter's saying, I own a standalone property in Queensland which was built with 2 other properties. There is no common property, but the developer put the 3 under a body corporate for insurance purposes. No body corporate manager, no meetings, just Strata insurance. How do we disband a body corporate? Yeah, I get asked that a lot too, Peter. I can't comment too much on the situation in Queensland, though I imagine that it's very similar to what it is in New South Wales. When I get asked about terminating a strata scheme simply for the purpose that the owners don't want to be under a strata title, what I say the owners should do as a first step is contact the local council, because there will be a reason generally why a building is strata titled and not otherwise freestanding properties. There will be a reason why a building would be company titled. So we haven't even talked about that, but we do have company title properties. Many of you here will be familiar with those. And often those who are in company title properties want to convert those to strata title, and there is a legal process for that. But some local councils have rules about land sizes and why properties would be strata titled or company titled or otherwise. A lot of people say Torrens. That is not the correct term, because strata title is Torrens title. So I generally say freestanding, standalone titles. There may be a reason, and it may be part of your council planning. So if you're wanting to know if that can be terminated or disbanded, as you say, then the local council is a good place to start with that question. Just see if we've got some more points here on our two-lot scheme. Stephen is a wealth of knowledge here today. Also noted recently some surveyors in two-lot schemes, all the buildings are part of the owner's lots, so responsibility of each owner. Oh yes, I understand what you're saying here. So I agree with you, Stephen. I'm seeing that too. What's happening is when the surveyors are drawing the strata plan, they're putting a notation on the strata plan showing that even though this is strata title and these are thick lines on the strata plan and otherwise would be common property, the notation on the plan is that the individual lot owner is responsible for the structure surrounding their lot. And that's done by describing the boundaries in a clear way and then stating where the lot owner's responsibility starts and finishes, and then where the owner's corporation's responsibility starts and finishes. I see that on those kinds of plans as well. The other thing that is possible for an owner's corporation to do is to create a bylaw down the track. So if the plan wasn't drawn that way, then a bylaw could be created to shift responsibility for otherwise common property areas to the lot owners, because it just makes sense for them to look after the structure of their lots. So you'd need a bylaw as well as quite a specific special resolution agreeing that the owner's corporation would no longer manage that area of the common property, and that responsibility instead shifts to the owners under a bylaw. And you would need the consent, the written consent of all owners to be able to do that. That's definitely something that I've helped owners in two-lot schemes with. I've also got a template. I've got a template bylaw for that because I kept getting asked about that. So there is a template bylaw on our website which can be accessed. We might come back around and pop in the link to that one. Rochelle and Christina are helping me out in the background, but I'm not sure I can remember the title of the bylaw to be able to assist them there. So I might come back around to that one. Michelle is saying, I once lived in a two-lot scheme. The owners of the other lot were my parents. We had no idea what was involved since it was just us and our first foray into strata. My husband and I sold out first, then my parents did. In hindsight, thank goodness. What are you saying here, Michelle? Nothing wrong with living in strata. It's funny, that's how it works, how developers may set up duplexes in particular, maybe for them to live in one side and then the other side is an investment. And that's why these considerations of unit entitlement and responsibilities and the future obligations are not necessarily front of mind, because the property has all been in the one ownership or has all been in the one family. So yeah, interesting point there. I just wanted to cover off the last point that I'm going to be bringing to the attention of our conveyancers tomorrow in our education session is the importance, the vital nature of pre-purchase inspections of strata books and records. Okay, so doing a strata search, and I don't mean just relying on that ticker box strata report that the vendor, the seller, might produce and give to you for a small fee, or that the agent might have on their online portal and you might be able to access for $20. Those strata reports say very, very little. What I always recommend to my family members, to my friends, they're the only people I'm really advising on property purchases these days, because I don't do any conveyancing anymore. But when they're buying into strata, when I'm buying into strata, then I say go to the strata manager's office. These days it can be done generally online, and make sure that you're accessing the books and records and you're reading those, and you're reading the emails that are passing between members of the community. And that way you get a feel for the harmony or otherwise of the community. You get an understanding of how active the committee is, who's on the committee. You can also get an understanding of how many owner occupiers there are. Sometimes that's important to people who want to live in their property. You can understand whether there's any litigation on, whether there are building defects, whether there are special levies proposed. Sometimes these things come up in a strata report. I think that often the strata reports that are provided by vendors, or that might be done quickly just to get the report out there and tick a box, are not as detailed as they need to be. And that's why when I ask you, as I did a few weeks ago, what do you wish you had known before you brought into strata, you're telling me these things about, are the bylaws enforced? Is repair and maintenance done? Who's on the committee and how long have they been on there? All of that information you should, if the records are properly kept, I hear you, you should be able to access through a search of the books and records. And you don't have to necessarily pay a strata lawyer to do that for you. You could do it yourself. I think most people who are investing in property are savvy enough to be able to go and have a read through books and records that are available online through Strata Manager. And when you're spending a pretty penny, it's worth the time and the effort, I believe, to do that. So tomorrow, when I present for the Australian Institute of Conveyancers here in Orange, I'm going to be reminding our conveyancers that they really should be advising their purchasers to go and do that exercise. Similar to strata managers, similar to lawyers, conveyancers advise and their clients, the purchasers, decide. So it may be that the purchasers don't want to take that step, don't want to spend the time or the energy doing that, but at least they have been advised of the recommendation to do that. Okay, so a few long questions coming through here. I'm just going to pick out those ones that may be relevant to what we have just been discussing. This is a good one. Peter is saying, on boundaries in strata plans, is there a site which explains the drawings? Peter, I'm not sure where you are. In New South Wales, you want to have a look at the Land Registry Services website. In addition to the Registrar General's directions. So the Land Registry Services website, if you look up strata, you'll probably see a link to the Registrar General's directions, and there will be an explanation there for how surveyors draw strata plans and what each type of line, thick, thin, dotted, is meant to represent. So if you're in New South Wales, it's Land Registry Services. If you are elsewhere, let me know and I will see if we can find out for you. There will be others here tuning in who may be able to direct you as well. Now, before my husband's laptop goes flat, I do want to make sure that I cover off a couple of items that I promised to cover today, in the lead up to this session. As many of you will now be aware, our New South Wales Building Commissioner David Chandler has called it quits. He has resigned from his position, a surprise to everyone as I am reading. And all that he said, you guys let me know if there's been an update in the media, but all that he said is that it's time for a reset. That was the quote that was in, I think, the Sydney Morning Herald a couple of days ago. Seems almost universal in our strata space that David has been seen as a champion, as someone who is a man of great integrity, experience, who has bravely put in place, taken the steps, done the things that have needed to be done in this state for the last 20 years. And it is with sadness, surprise, some shock that we all hear that he has resigned from his position. I know Jimmy Thompson, who manages the Flat Chat website. I often share some of Jimmy's material here on the page. He's been a guest on the podcast or on live, and he also writes a column in the Australian Financial Review. Jimmy, in his newsletter this week, had a few comments to say as to why he thought that David may have resigned from his position. I won't repeat those here, but if you want to go and check out Jimmy's comments on his Flat Chat website, then we'll post the link to the Flat Chat website here. Maybe Christina and Rochelle, you could do that here for me. I know many of you will be familiar with that site. But who knows what is going to happen now? David's replacement is being looked for, is being searched for, and it will be interesting to see who that person is and whether they take that same very hands-on, very hard line, very necessary, most of us here in this space say, necessary approach that David Chandler has taken. So sorry to see you go, David Chandler, but the good work, you've certainly done such good work over the last few years with making sure we've had in place legislation that I believe will go some way to protecting future purchases of our brand new buildings, definitely. John is saying, I think this is on the point about David resigning, expect things to get worse for the owner. Yeah, that's certainly what we've seen in the media. And for our Queensland viewers, listeners, followers, I wanted to make sure that you were aware that the Queensland government, I believe, has announced a review of short-term letting laws. So apparently the housing shortage in Queensland, across the country really, I think, has prompted the review of short-term letting, Airbnb style arrangements. Brisbane, certainly, we saw was proposing higher council rates. Do I have that right? Higher council rates for those who are using their properties for short-term letting. And now it's been proposed that there's a wholesale review of short-term letting laws. And that will, of course, involve a look at residential apartment buildings. Similar, it sounds like, to the process that we have gone through in New South Wales over the past many years. It's taken many years to get the current regime that we have in New South Wales up and running. I did see some comments from LinkedIn from some lawyers about the Queensland proposal to review their laws, and some of the proposals were, well, why don't they just amend the Body Corporate and Community Management Act to allow body corporates in Queensland to set their own rules about short-term letting. We have a little bit of that model here in New South Wales, where we do now have legislation that says an owners corporation can pass a bylaw that prevents short-term letting, but only where that particular lot is not the owner's principal place of residence. So I say in New South Wales, we can prevent investor owners from short-term letting in strata apartments, but we can't prevent owner-occupiers from short-term letting. So going away for 6 months and then having short-term tenants in their property for that 6 months. We have a kind of convoluted, complicated system around that, where there's state planning legislation about caps on short-term letting, and then we have our short-term our register, our code of conduct, and our short-term letting register. So I imagine Queensland will be having a look at that model and seeing whether that's something that might work for them. I'm not too sure yet whether it's working for us. Let me just say that. I'm just having a look here. Christina has sent me a link that I believe is the link to Jimmy's comments on David Chandler's resignation. Yep, that looks right to me. Rochelle, post that one in. If it's not right, then it will be a good read anyway, I'm sure. Thank you for that. Alrighty. Now, that's what I had on my agenda for today. So I am going to head back through these comments and see if we can dive into anything else before my battery goes flat here. Julie's saying each state is different for the boundaries of lots and common property. Yes, that's right there, Julie. I think that's to Peter's comment about how do we work out what these boundaries are. I've suggested in New South Wales, go and have a look at land registry services. Certainly have a look at the titling authority in your own state, and hopefully there's some guidance there about strata title. Speaking of Queensland, Queensland's always had some really good detailed online information for strata owners through the Office of the Body Corporate Commissioner. So that's always a good place to look if you're in Queensland as well. Julie might let us know. Julie, I think you're in Victoria. Julie might let us know the best place to go in Victoria for that kind of information. Henry is saying in Victoria, an owner's corporation statement is required in a contract for sale. This is provided by the strata manager and includes the bylaws, AGM minutes, income statement and financials. Yeah, really good point, Henry. We have different disclosure obligations across our different states. More complexity. In Victoria, you do have to have that disclosure statement. Queensland, I don't know if it's in yet, but there is a proposal for something similar. I think it's a proposal. I saw it recently. A proposal for something similar. And I believe the body corporate disclosure for those who are buying into body corporates was like 11 pages long. It was some kind of mandatory form that was quite lengthy, but I'm not sure that the Queensland lawyers were thinking it contained too much useful information. So definitely different across states. We had a case, we didn't, but Western Australia had a case come out of their Supreme Court 2 months ago. It was May, and I'm going to be talking about it tomorrow, where there was a disclosure on the part of a vendor, a very broad disclosure, that there was nothing in the strata property, there was nothing that would impact the purchaser's use or enjoyment of their lot or the common property. There was nothing that the seller was aware of that would impact the purchaser's use and enjoyment of the common property. And that was a standard term. That is a standard term in Western Australian contracts for sale, frighteningly. As I understand it, we don't have that in New South Wales. I'm not sure about other states, but that's an incredibly broad disclosure to have to make. And this couple who sold their unit in Western Australia made that disclosure, and they were sued by their purchaser because the purchaser took up residence in the property, very excited, a single woman, I think she was, and found the most abhorrent, abusive, nuisance, to put it lightly, neighbour lived above her, I believe it was, lived above her. And he would yell abuse at her, he would play his music at unreasonable levels, he'd put his speakers out on the balcony. She called the police, she feared for her life, her mental health was affected. If you read through this judgment, and I'll come back and post it here, it was quite horrible, as I understand it. And it turned out that there was evidence that the vendor knew that this person was in residence and knew what a nuisance they were and didn't disclose that in the contract. The vendor had tenants in the property coming and going because they couldn't live there. The vendor themselves couldn't live there. And ultimately, the Supreme Court found that the vendor had failed to disclose that the purchaser was entitled to rescind the contract, and the purchaser was awarded $500,000 in damages, which included the purchase price, the interest on her mortgage, and the comment from the judge, a very well written, very, very good judgment, I think. Comment from the judge was that maybe this was a Pyrrhic victory for the purchaser because there was just no way that these vendors had the money to be able to pay that damages fee. They'd already sold their house to fund the litigation. And importantly, for our purposes, the comment from the judge was that why wasn't this nuisance neighbour pursued? Why wasn't the nuisance neighbour brought before the court for their actions? There seemed to be no action perhaps from the Strata company where action was available to combat the bad behaviour of this nuisance neighbour, and that person was surprisingly missing from any of the proceedings. So disclosure, such an important topic, such an important obligation to understand when you're selling properties and definitely when you're advising on the sale of properties. And I do wonder if that Western Australian Supreme Court case is about to make things a little bit more complex in that area. Julie, thank you. Julie is saying Land Use Victoria. Land Use Victoria is the place to go to if you want to find out more about the technicalities of drawing strata plans. Do you call them strata plans, Julie? I know you don't have the term strata. Owners Corporation plans in Victoria. And Stephen's saying WA is woeful for disclosure. I find that interesting, Stephen, because that's quite a broad obligation that I understand might be in the standard conditions of contract. So I wonder if they're there, but they're not being complied with. That disclosure obligation is there, but it's not being complied with. Okay, now I am going to have to wrap up because I've drawn enough attention to myself. The thing is, I have a light. I have a light that's attached here to my laptop. So I'm just like sitting here in fluoro in the corner of the Orange Ex-Services Club. And it's pretty packed. It's pretty packed now. So I'm just going to quietly pack up. My laptop is also going flat. Quietly pack up and just head on out. I will be practicing this evening my presentation for tomorrow. When I'm on the stage, I like to make sure that I can deliver a presentation without notes. That's always much more engaging and I can interact with the audience a little bit more. So that means I got to go practice. How many times? How many times do I practice? 3 times. 3 times. That's the rule. You've got to practice 3 times. So I'll go do that. Maybe I can get some room service. It's great to be here with you. It has been a really good chat, and so many of you here asking good questions. I know I didn't get around to all of those answers, so I'll whip around after my practice this evening and see what I can do for you and where I can direct you. Enjoy your weekends, everybody. I will be rugged up here in Orange. It's gotten a little bit cooler since I sat down, that's for sure. And maybe I'll bring you some comments, maybe some videos, some photos from tomorrow. Michelle is going to be here with me, being official photographer, which will be fun. And I will catch you all next time. Good to see you. Bye-bye.